The Nautilus GREY has arrived, and Moog shuts down the shop live facility at its headquarters in Asheville. Okay, this news may be a couple of weeks out of date, and the reason why it may be a couple of weeks out of date is because I only saw it when I was going through my emails this week, and they've kind of been building up. I've not really been taking care of the emails because of everything that's going on around here in terms of building work, etc, etc. I've still got another week, at least another week of the builders here finishing off their bits. And other things to do with kitting out this place and other such things. Anyway, I was going through my emails this week. I was deleting emails or storing emails as necessary, etc, etc. And I came across this email, and I hadn't registered this email from Korg to me. The subject of the email was Nautilus AT gets a fresh new look. And if I remember, I will put a photograph of what the fresh new look looks like. The email then goes on to state that Korg are releasing the Nautilus AT GREY. What? What on God's name has got into you to release a grey keyboard? Okay, so I thought, well, it's a grey keyboard, it's a special edition. What's the crack? Well, first up, the first thing you notice about the Korg AT GREY is, in the UK at least, it carries a £200 premium on the 88, the 76 and the 61. So if you were to buy the normal Nautilus AT and you put £200 on top of that, that's the equivalent new grey AT. Admittedly, the grey 88 comes with black ash ends. So as opposed to the normal AT, which looked a bit like Kronos with these brushed wood ends, it comes with brushed black wood ends. So then I thought, there has to be a difference, there has to be something else. Have Korg given you new sounds for the sound engines, or have they even gone out of their way and actually put a new sound engine on the Nautilus AT GREY? Sadly, no. In fact, the AT GREY is exactly as the AT Black. There is no functional difference between the grey and the black, apart from one, it's grey with white writing and not black with white writing. The problem I have with a grey keyboard, it hardly stands out. And you know what I mean, especially if you're a keyboard player of the gigging variety. And sorry, I've pinched that from the Keyboard Chronicles because they say all the time the Keyboard Chronicles is a podcast for keyboard players of the gigging variety. Anyway, but keyboard players of the gigging variety always complain that they are normally, if you think about it, to the left, to the right, or the back of the stage. And they're never up front. And they're always standing behind their keyboards. Because if they don't stand behind the keyboards, they can't play them. So they often kind of blend into the furniture. And that's one of the biggest complaints of keyboard players, of course. It's why some keyboard players play guitars. And I know, the Keyboard Chronicles ask this question all the time. Guitars, abortion, or whatever. I can't remember. And I actually think to get the keyboard player out into the sort of general mix, actually guitars are not bad things. As long as you use them for what they're designed to be used for, which is prancing around stage looking like a brat. But, they have their place. So, keyboard players tend to do anything they can to try and get noticed. And I sort of refer to this, things like they have the house lights placed on them so that when you know, the stage is lit up, they have lights lighting them up, if you're lucky enough. They do things like they have chrome stands. Gibraltar keyboard stand rings the bell, because when the light hits that, it shines and everybody looks, oh, there's a shiny thing over there, even though you're playing keyboards that are black. They do things like wear funky clothes. I'm thinking specifically here of Rick Wakeman, who wanders around with a cape on. Yes, okay, well, maybe that's not the right thing. Anyway, they try to make themselves stand out. That's what keyboard players do, you know, because otherwise you just blend into the background. You have red keyboards, you have white keyboards, but a grey keyboard? Does that stand out? When the Kronos was in production, we had the black Kronos. One black Kronos, which I actually think looks incredibly sexy, but that's me, and I'm a keyboard player nerd. Then we had the platinum, that was kind of platinum in colour. Then we had the gold, which funny enough was gold in colour. Then we had the SE, which kind of had this sort of red and black sunburst at the end, colour coding. Then there was the titanium, which kind of was silver, but it's meant to be titanium in colour. And then there was the LS that had the sunburst side panels, which I actually thought was quite nice. But the thing was, each one of these was quite distinctive, especially if you were looking at the keyboard stand. You would see the colour. Now, one thing Korg never did with the Kronos, they never had the Kronos white like they did with the Montage. And I don't know whether you've been to see Wayne Harris playing, but he has a white Montage, and I actually think the white Montage looks incredibly good, I have to be honest. And very distinctive, with the sort of white with the black lettering along the back. So why didn't Korg go for the Korg AT Mustard? Or maybe the AT Sunset? Or maybe the AT Ocean with a sort of kind of blue phase to them, opposed to the AT Grey? I guess we will never know what was in the heads of those incredibly clever people at Korg Marketing, who think that grey portrays the creativity of the keyboard player. What do you guys think about a grey Nautilus? Ignore the fact it's the Nautilus, but what do you think about a grey keyboard in general? Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. The next thing that came up on my feed this week was the Moog shop at Asheville is closing down. Now, there is some background to this, that this particular Moog shop was opened at the Asheville site in 2011, and it was so Asheville. When I'm talking about Asheville, of course I'm talking about North Carolina, USA, and it was designed so that enthusiast synth players could go to this zone and experience the whole sort of Moog sonic experience in the place where the keyboards are actually built. But 13 years later, and I suspect following the change of ownership of Moog in 2023, has led to the new owners evaluating whether this shop is actually worthwhile keeping. And obviously they come to the conclusion that it's not. Now, shortly after the acquisition of Moog by InMusic, a number of the admin functions were, and I understand, moved from Asheville to other InMusic locations. And to be honest, you know, that's how you get savings from an acquisition. You start to move common functions to places where common activities can be undertaken. So, you know, rather than have 10 people in Asheville that do a certain activity, you can have 5 people at head office because you get the synergies of the same activity. So I kind of get that, a consolidated operating model. So the official statement that is in preparation stated that this is in preparation for the next chapter in the Moog instrument evolution, whatever that means. The factory will remain, but the engineers handcrafted Moog synthesizers that many of you own. Yeah, well, at least they've confirmed that the factory carries on. Shifting away from a bricks and mortar retail operation apparently provides more bandwidth for focusing on R&D and the next generation of synthesizers. This, of course, is corporate technobabble for we're trying to cut costs. So, if you want to experience a Moog by planning a trip to Moog itself in Asheville, North Carolina, don't bother, because it ain't there anymore. Now, the other thing they go on to say is that we all know, well, I don't know whether you all know, but there is actually a museum in Asheville, in downtown Asheville. I don't actually know how big Asheville is, but it has a downtown, so it must be a fairly decent size. Anyway, the Moog Museum in downtown Asheville actually remains, with the company stating that it's committing to the legacy of Bob Moog himself. However, what I should also point out here is that the Moog Museum is actually not connected in any way to Moog music. It is actually run by a charitable foundation called the Bob Moog Foundation. So why the company made this kind of statement is a little bit interesting, unless the company intends on supporting the Moog Museum. But the Moog Museum, actually, if you go on their website, makes a very specific point saying we are not connected to Moog music. So there you go, one side or the other. Anyway, I know a lot of people who follow this channel own these fabled instruments and have probably more of a personal view on this latest Moog statement. I know many of you think that this is kind of, cashing in on the Moog name. Personally, I don't own a Moog product. I've never owned a Moog synthesizer. I've played them, I have never owned one. And to be honest, it doesn't really fit in my style of music. And some people may find that interesting, but it really hasn't. I've never hankered after a Moog, and I've got no plans to buy one. So I look at this a little bit agnostically from my perspective. Now, was the shop at the Asheville site intrinsically and vital to the experience of owning a Moog, or was it kind of a nice place to visit if you happen to be in North Carolina? I've no idea either way. I've been to North Carolina. I never went to Moog, I have to be honest, but then, as having said that, I went to North Carolina in the early 2000s, so the shop wouldn't have been there anyway, and I'm not sure the museum would have been either. So, but let me know in the comments, how do you feel about the fact that another piece of the Moog jigsaw puzzle has been removed following the purchase by In Music? And on that note, I'm going to say, live long and prosper, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye!